Well, I first started at Lockheed in January of 1959 working on the F-104 environmental control system. And in July of 1961, I was interviewed by Ben Rich to come over to do a project that he couldn't tell me about. And I told Ben that I would love to do it, and then I talked to my department manager, and I interviewed Ben on a Friday, and Monday morning I was moving into the Skunk Works. So it was a very fast way to get to the Skunk Works, and I was helping to work on the A-12, and I was helping to work on the U-2C. I was doing problem solving for some of the little new pieces of equipment they were trying to install in the U-2. And I was also doing fuel system thermal analysis, skin temperature thermal analysis, internal subsystem thermal analysis on the A-12. And then we started working on the YF-12A, which was the interceptor version of the A-12, which was going to be an Air Force airplane to intercept the Russian bombers that would be coming over. And then we started to work on an SR-71 for the Air Force, who wanted to get into the picture of reconnaissance, even though the CIA had been involved with the A-12. Air Force wanted their own branch. And then we started doing one for the CIA where we mounted a remote controlled or automatically powered drone that would be launched off the top of the A-12 that would then fly into these various countries without a pilot in it, so we wouldn't have to worry about somebody being captured like Gary Powers was in the U-2. And from there, learning all of this information on thermodynamics of practical aircraft, when I got involved with the Bearcat, I was able to apply some of the stuff I learned at the Skunk Works for these high speed to the low speed, and some of the things I learned from Darryl Greenamyer and doing the work on the Bearcat, I was able to apply things later on the I guess you would call it the YF-12 and the SR-71, and then on the F-117, and then on later models of the U-2, and then on the X-35, the various programs that I worked on at the Skunk Works. What happened was Darryl was winning every year, and we were the Lockheed engineers that were effectively racing. The engineers and Darryl from Lockheed were racing against the engineers from Boeing and with Chuck Lyford, and he kept blowing his engines up because he liked this nitrous oxide stuff that they use in the unlimited hydroplanes up in Seattle, and he got a little greedy on how much he wanted to punch the button with. And Darryl had mentioned that he, one of the years he punched the button for 1,000 horsepower, and of course the rods wouldn't take that, and it pitched a hole through the engine so big that they were passing a football through it after it landed on the ground, and they got it cleaned up a little bit. Darryl won the races, and finally Darryl says, you know, you better go help some of the other people, because I don't think that these guys know what they're doing, and that you and Bruce need to help some of the other people so there can continue to be races. And so Darryl took me down to the carburetor shop that did his water injection system and his carburetor, and he told the guy that owned the company, I'd like Pete to learn all about how to do carburetors and water injection systems and help out the other racers. And I did that. I worked with him, with Al DeMauro at Aircraft Carburetor, learned about carburetors and water injection systems. In the meantime, I was asked to do carburetors for the unlimited hydroplanes up in Seattle by some of the guys that had knew that I was working with the water injection and working with Darryl. So I was doing a lot of the unlimited hydroplane carburetors. And then I think that Bruce first started helping Dick Weaver with his P-51, and then Cliff Cummins had his P-51 Miss Candace, which ended up becoming Jeannie, which won Reno twice, and then eventually became the Galloping Ghost with Jimmy Leeward. And in the meantime, we built an airplane called Dago Red for Bill DeStefany and Frank Taylor. And then every time that somebody came along wanting to build a new airplane, they said, well, we need to build an airplane faster than the previous one. So then they were called the Candace clones. Well, we've done the ultimate. Way back a long time ago when Darryl decided that he was going to try to do a P-51 for Smirnoff, and we were sponsored by Smirnoff with the Bearcat, of putting the two engines together in a P-51 so that you could get a lot more speed out of the P-51, and we started thinking of other things to do. We decided it would be eventually a good idea to be able to water boil, cool the oil, so you didn't need to take the air on board to cool the oil. And on a P-51, we decided we wanted to get rid of the scoop on the bottom. And so eventually we went to do that. And in 1992, Stiletto had the water boiling oil cooling system and the water boiling cooling system to cool the coolant. Well, it was a surprise to me. On Saturday we were there. The races had been canceled Friday afternoon, and the atmosphere was, of course, very sad. But on Saturday morning at about 11 o'clock, I got a call to report down to somebody's pit. And I went down, there were an awful lot of people around, and Tom Camp, the president of the Unlimited Division, said, "Hey, Pete, come on over here. I want to talk to you for a minute." And I went over there and he said, "Okay, guys, Pete is here. I want you guys to know that the Unlimited Division is giving Pete an appreciation award for all the work that you've done for the people in the Unlimited Division since 1965. And to show our appreciation, we're making you a lifetime member of the Unlimited Division. And this is an award for all the help you've given all the planes and people here at Reno with your engineering and all the things you've done for the Unlimited Division." It's sort of a lifetime achievement award, is the way they described it. And of course, I was pretty tearful when I went up to pick up this beautiful trophy with an eagle on the top of it, and it was kind of a culmination when you can think that your peers thought enough of you to do that. And Steve Hinton said a few words, and he said that they're sorry that it was such a sad time to be doing this, that they hadn't anticipated that it would be such a hard time to be doing this, but they wanted me to know that their appreciation. And so it was kind of an honor in my life, and I have to thank Darryl for starting Bruce and I off in it to do all this. But I also pointed out to them that the people who do the work are the ones that make it happen, not the engineers. The engineers come up with ideas, make sure that it'll work, but people have to build it, put it in the airplane, and the pilots have to have confidence that it's going to work. And I told all the people that were there were about a third of the Unlimited Division people and crews were there, and I thanked them for what they did, because it was their work that made my engineering work. And Darryl, of course, appreciated what Bruce and I did for him, and it was sort of all a team effort. And no one person's more important than the other, except the pilot that has to fly it. That's the guy that makes the whole culmination of work.